Hello everyone, and today we're going to be attempting yet another past paper question for the ACCA Performance Management exam. The question we're going to do today is on the topic of the building block model, which there aren't really many Section C questions released on, to be honest. However, it is a popular topic in the exam, that's why I felt we should attempt a question like this. The question is from the December 2018 exam, and it's the first question of Section C, so question 31, the one-stop car company, or OSC co. Okay, so let's attempt this question. As always, we'll start with the requirement first and foremost. So the requirement says there's two requirements for 20 marks total. The first requirement, part A, is the main one for 16 marks in total. And it says for each of the dimensions of the building block model. What were the dimensions? You could remember them using the mnemonic QUIF, FC. Q, quality. U, utilization. I, innovation. F, flexibility. F, financial performance. And C, competitiveness, right? So these 6 dimensions, for each of them, we need to calculate one performance indicator for MSC, which is one of the companies above, and one for the OSC average using the data available. So for each of the 6 dimensions, we need to calculate a relevant performance indicator related to that particular dimension. After that, briefly justify your choice of the performance indicator. We need to justify why we picked that particular performance indicator for each dimension. So we need to give justification and discuss MSC's performance relative to the other OSC service centers, and we need to do a comparison. The main issue that students have in such a long requirement is they fail to hit all the parts of the requirement. So read it step by step, sentence by sentence, and jot down your requirements so that you make sure you address all of them, right? So in our question over here, if we were to jot it down, this question 31, so we'll just start by labeling it, and this is going to be part A, right? And we'll keep this column to the side for the labels, and we'll start our answer here. What do we need in our requirement? For each dimension, right? So we'll have our dimensions. Let's just label them over here so that we can format our answer, right? So we have quality, Q. Then we have utilization, right? We have innovation. We have flexibility. We have financial performance, and we have competitiveness. To be honest, those are the more important ones, so let's keep them on top rather than below all of these, right? So we can have financial performance, or just financial for that matter, and we can have our competitiveness. Okay, so we have our 6 dimensions, and for each of them we need to calculate a performance indicator, right? So we need a performance indicator. We'll just put that down over here for each of them. We need to justify our choice of the performance indicator briefly, right? So we need to give a justification for that below. So we'll also have a section for the justification for the performance indicator, right? And we need to discuss the performance, right? So we'll also have a discussion of the MSC's performance, right? So with our headings now, we can just copy paste these every time we move down to a different dimension and make sure we hit all the requirements, right? So it's good practice to do this. So let's get into the question itself. So it says the one-stop car co, OSC co, so that's OSC co, okay, offers a range of services for car owners at its 55 service centers across the country. The car maintenance business is extremely competitive in all regions across the country. Each service center operates autonomously, meaning independently, and managers are able to choose how to package up the services they offer. OSC Co's aim is to make the task of car maintenance a pleasure and not a chore. Its national website states the following: range of service packs available, including express service and full valet work while you wait service with average wait times of only 2 hours. So this might be relevant, average wait times of only 2 hours, right? Watch our friendly, experienced mechanics produce high quality. All of this is just fluff. Freshly made tea and coffee, again fluff. Monthly free price draw for all, again all of this is fluff. It doesn't seem relevant. Customers initially access the national website, but depending on the location they are automatically redirected to the website of the nearest service center so that they can view the offers available at the center. All bookings are made through the OSC website. Okay, results for one of the service centers, Midland Service Center, MSC. So this is MSC. And what did they ask us to do? We need to compare the performance of MSC to, as they mentioned down below, other OSC service centers, right? And as we can see in the data, they've given us the data for MSC and for the OSC average, so the average of the other service centers. So we need to compare the performances here. So it says for the year which has ended, we are given the following data, and it shows the average. OSC shows the average figures for all 55 service centers, and we have all of this data, right? And we have notes pertaining to that data. And then it says the CEO of OSC has recently attended a business seminar and heard about Fitzgerald and Moon's building block model of performance management. The CEO is interested in how the dimensions block could be applied at OSC Go. The dimensions of performance identified in the model are, and they've given them to us: competitiveness, financial performance, quality of service, flexibility, resource utilization, and innovation. Keep in mind they don't always give this, so you still need to memorize all of these, but in any case. So let's start with performance indicator. We need to calculate it for each of the dimensions, starting with financial performance. Now they've given all this data, but performance indicator, when it comes to the exam, they don't want you to use one line item. They want you to combine and make ratios out of 2 line items. So for example, for financial performance, potentially we could just look at the gross profit or the sales revenue, but that's not what they want in the exam. They want you to combine different metrics given over here in the form of a ratio and then analyze the performance. Now we already have an easy one just based on the top 2 lines, right? Sales revenue and gross profit, we can use gross profit over sales revenue, which is our gross profit margin. And for financial performance, typically they expect you to use a profit margin. So if they don't give you gross profit, they'll give you net profit or operating profit, right? So that's what we'll use. So let's start. Our performance indicator is going to be the gross profit margin. Right, we're doing this in a spreadsheet so that it's easier for you guys to follow the calculations. So we'll have MSC's performance and we'll have the OSC average, right? And we can, again, these are headings, so we'll just format them a bit so that it's more presentable. Let's just drag these columns out a bit. Okay, so the gross profit margin for MSC, we'll just input our numbers, is 304,200 divided by 760,500. Okay, and for OSC average is 328,146 over 890,365. Please always double check your numbers given here so that you know there's no typos, because you don't want to lose marks here. So 304,200 over 760,500 and 328,146 over 890,365. Okay, that's fine. It's a margin, so this is a percentage measure, so we'll format it accordingly. Okay, we need to give a justification of why we're using the gross profit margin next. So see, now we have the benefit of having done all the work initially with the requirements. We just need to fill out these spaces now. So what could the justification be? Very simply, measuring a profitability ratios such as the gross profit margin is typically used to assess a company's financial performance and seems suitable in this case. Okay, so we have our justification. Again, this is briefly, so we don't need to go into too much detail, and then we need to discuss the performance for MSc. So what can we say? Well, the gross profit margin was higher than the OSC average, right? So we can start by mentioning MSc has outperformed the OSC average seemingly. This seems to be a good result, but that's not analysis, right? That's just stating the obvious. So what could be a reason for them having a higher gross profit margin, right? And we can connect that to other analysis that we do down below. So for now, what can we say? We can see that the percentage of customer feedback forms showing a score of 9 or 10 is 80% for MSc and 70% for OSC average, right? So we can use something like that. We can say the customers seem more happy, right? One of the reasons for this could be that customers are happier with MSc's performance and coming back over and over, right? This can be seen from the customer feedback scores where MSc has scored better than the OSC average, right? And if need be, we can modify this as we move along and get possibly more information from our analysis below. So for now, let's just move on to the next part. Let's just copy our formats from here so that we don't have to repeat all of that. So we'll need the justification and we'll need a discussion of MSc's performance. Okay. So competitiveness, what can we use to analyze the competitiveness? Competitiveness meaning how well you stack up against competitors. What do you have that makes customers prefer you over competitors, and are customers actually preferring you over competitors? So there's some typical ones they use in the exam. Let's just read through the ones that they've given us. So the first two were financial metrics. We have number of mechanics senior, number of mechanics junior, number of new service packs developed, number of website hits, and total number of jobs booked and completed. Okay, so this is a typical one that they use for competitiveness. What's that? The number of website hits, they'll give you something like that, or number of inquiries. A website hit or an inquiry is when a customer wants a particular service, so they're checking all the different options that they have. So they'll go to the website of OSC and any other competitors and see their services, their prices, and so on and so forth, right? So the number of website hits given an indication of how many curious customers, potential customers did you get. And then you have the total number of jobs booked and completed. So out of the 14,000, for example, inquiries that MSc got on their website, 9,506 of those customers actually booked a job, right? So that gives us a conversion rate. So out of 14,000 customers, 9,506 chose MSc and the remaining ones chose their competitors, right? So that gives us an indication of how much they preferred MSc over their competitors, right? So the ratio typically is total number of jobs booked over total website hits or total inquiries. So we're going to do that over here as well, right? So we can mention conversion rate of website hits to jobs booked, right? Conversion rate. So you can just stretch this out. So let's just keep it till this. So for MSc is 9,506 over 14,000, and for OSC average it's 11,870 over 18,260. Okay, And how will we justify this? Very simple. We'll say the ratio of jobs booked over the number of website hits gives an indication of how many customers inquired relating to MSC's, a company's services, and how many of those customers ended up choosing the company over its competitors. Let's just take this to the next line, over its competitors by actually booking a job. Okay, so the ratio of jobs booked over the number of website hits gives an indication of how many customers inquired relating to a company's services and how many of those customers ended up choosing the company over its competitors by actually booking the job. So there's our justification, and again we need to discuss the performance. Again, they have a higher conversion rate, so that's good, but let's talk about that. What could be a reason for that? Once again, we can talk about the quality of the feedback. In this metric, MSE has a higher conversion rate than the OSE average, indicating that they are more effective in attracting customers over their competitors, right? Competitors. As discussed above, customer feedback scores indicate that customers like MSC at better than the OSE average, which is why they might prefer them over the competition. Okay, and once again, if need be, we can modify this as we move along. Okay, now let's get on with quality. So quality usually has to do with customer feedback, right? Potentially we could say percentage of customer feedback forms to talk about quality like we have above. But like I said, they prefer that we use ratios rather than single line items. So we can't just say, okay, customer feedback forms. We need a performance indicator, so we need to calculate something. So apart from feedback scores, other things that we can use for quality are repeat sales, right? If a customer is happy with your product or service, they'll keep buying from you, right? If you like a restaurant, you keep going back to that restaurant. So same story here. And do they have something like that? Yep. So right down here, number of jobs from repeat customers only. So out of the 9,506, 1,500 were from repeat customers. So we can have the percentage of jobs from repeat customers as our metric. So once again, let's just copy the format from above and then use it. So we can say percentage proportion of jobs that from repeat customers, right? Proportion of jobs from repeat customers. So for MSC it's gonna be 1,500 over 9,506, and for OSE it's gonna be 1,660 over 11,870. Oops, mistake. 1,660 over 11,870. So 15.8% versus 14%. Justification, just what we just talked about. Repeat sales are an indication that customers are happy with the service provided. If you are happy, you will continue to buy from the company. Thus, the proportion of sales of sales from repeat customers gives an indication of how happy customers are with the quality of service provided. Okay, and let's just talk about the discussion. Once again, they have a high rate. MSC has a higher rate or proportion of repeat sales as compared to the OSC average. This, along with the higher customer feedback scores, indicates that MSC is providing better quality services. Okay, so there's that. After that, utilization, resource utilization. Usually when we talk about resource utilization, it either has to do with the staff of a company or with some assets potentially. With service companies, because the building block model, if you recall, is primarily focused on service companies, the focus is usually on staff utilization. So let's see what we can do for that. So let's just copy the format again. And after that, we're left with two more. So, okay, so utilization, what else do we have? We have the total time spent completing jobs in terms of hours, and then we have the customer feedback. They have mentioned the number of mechanics. So for utilization, potentially what we can say is how much time was spent by a mechanic or how many jobs were completed by a mechanic, right? We could either go by total time or number of jobs over the total number of mechanics, right? I would say let's go by number of jobs, because spending more time doesn't mean you're actually doing productive work, but the number of jobs completed shows the actual productive work being done. So I would say that's a better indicator, but technically you wouldn't be too wrong if you use total time per mechanic, right? So let's use jobs per mechanic, right? So for MSc, the total jobs were 9,506. Be careful, the 1,500 is, remember, just from repeat customers. The total is 9,506, right? So 9,506, and how many mechanics do they have? They have 7 senior and 5 junior mechanics. 7 plus 5. Okay, something is... Alright, the format. Let's just change the format here, right? So it shouldn't be in a percentage. And let's just double check where the above ones, a proportion should be in a percentage, conversion rate should be in a percentage, and a margin, of course, should be in a percentage. So the OSC average was 11,870 divided by 7.8 plus 5.2. Okay, so OSC has a higher utilization rate, so let's talk about that. First, the justification. The jobs per mechanic ratio gives an indication about how many jobs each mechanic completed on average, right? This will also let us know how busy each mechanic was, thereby giving an idea of their utilization. Okay. In real life, companies often use booking hours on a job to see how much the utilization is, but like I said, that doesn't necessarily mean they're being productive, right? A worker could work for 8 hours and do nothing, or work for 1 hour and do a lot. So that's why personally I would say this is a better indicator. Okay, let's discuss their performance. So they actually have a lower utilization, significantly lower utilization than the OSC average. What that means is mechanics are taking more time, right, to complete a job at MSc because they're completing fewer jobs than the OSC average. Now, you might think this is bad, but as we've seen, the quality and the feedback scores and everything above, the profitability, all of that seems to indicate that our customers don't mind this happening. So what we could sort of build the story around is the fact that yes, they're taking more time per job, but because of that, maybe they're able to deliver better quality service and customers are actually happier as a result. So this isn't necessarily a bad thing. So that's what we can say. Right, so the reason we're saying it that way is because we need to be consistent that customers are actually happy. So let's start by saying MSc mechanics have completed fewer jobs on average than the OSC average mechanic, right? And this means that they are taking more time per job. However, given MSC's good customer feedback and performance and profitability, it seems that customers do not mind the extra time taken, right? And we can mention, in fact, it is possible that by spending the extra time, the MSc mechanics are able to provide a better quality service, as we have seen above. Okay, so we're linking it to our previous points as well. Okay, very good. Let's move on with innovation. With innovation, it's usually a typical metric that we use, that revenue or profit from new jobs, right? So we'll see if we can calculate that over here. Once again, let's just quickly copy the format from above. And this is a 16 marks part. So this is where we're spending the majority of our time. Yes, there's another 4-mark part, but that's smaller. We'll be able to breeze through it, I'm sure, once we're done with this. And we're almost done with this in any case. So innovation, they haven't mentioned any new jobs here, but remember we have notes. So let's just read the notes. Mechanics are classified as senior if they've been qualified for more than 5 years. That's fine. Junior mechanics include both trainee mechanics and mechanics who have been qualified for less than 5 years. Okay, that's fine. MSc introduced 3 new service packs, right? This is what we were looking for. New services or new products provided. They've listed the service packs. No one cares. The 3 new service packs, here's what we're looking for. Produced revenue of this much. So we have the revenue from the new service packs and we have the overall revenue as well. So we can calculate how much of the proportion of revenue from new service packs And there was also mentioned 2 comparable new service packs were developed by other centers and they produce this revenue, right? So we can say revenue, proportion of revenue from new service packs. And point 4, the online feedback asks customers to rate centers from 1 to 10. So that's fine, that's not relevant here. Okay, so proportion of revenue from new service packs. So for MSC, it's gonna be, there's 3 new service packs, so 66,000 plus 58,000 plus 54,000 over 760, 500. So 0.23. It's a percentage. We'll just format this. Let's just calculate it for both. And over here, it's going to be 44,000 plus 42,000 over the revenue of 890,365. So let's just convert these into percentages. Okay. And justification. Revenue from new service packs indicates how successful a company has been in introducing new products and services to the market, thereby showing their innovation. Okay, and let's discuss the performance. So we can see they have a much higher proportion, so they're far more innovative, and that might have brought in more customers as well, and the customers might be happy from the increase of new types of services, right? We can see that MSC has a far better percentage of revenue from new services as compared to the OSC average. This indicates that they are more innovative, which might have contributed to the higher customer feedback scores, right? We're bringing everything back to that because the higher customer feedback scores at the end of the day are very important, and we can always link these things back to that. Okay. We can also potentially mention that they introduced 3 new service packs as compared to 2 for the OSC average, but we're running short on time, so let's just skip ahead. Okay, let's just copy this again. The last one, flexibility. Flexibility is a bit tricky because with flexibility, what do we exactly mean by that, right? It means how well you respond to customer needs. But again, you could say customer feedback could give us that indication, but we can't use that. We need a ratio. Flexibility, usually in the exam, they expect you to calculate the time spent per job, because that gives an indication about how quickly you are able to turn around a customer's request regardless of what it is and deliver them the service. So we're just gonna do that. That's the standard one you should go for in the exam, right? Time per job. Okay. So time per job for MSC, well, we'll need the format without the percentage, so we can just copy paste this over here. So time per job for MSC, total time is 23,100, and we have 9,506 jobs. So 23,100 over 9,506, so 2.43, and 24,800 for the OSC average over 11,870, so 2.09. So as we can see, like we mentioned above in the utilization one, they are taking more time per job. So we're just bringing it all together now, right? So we'll mention time taken per job indicates how flexible the company is in taking customer requests and turning them around into successfully completed jobs. Okay, so there's our justification. Successfully completed jobs, thereby catering to various different customer requirements in a good amount of in quick time, right? Okay, let's discuss the performance quickly. So as we can see, MSc mechanics take more time per job than the average OSc mechanic, right? As we mentioned above, this likely allows them to deliver a better quality service, resulting in happier customers and better profitability. Okay, we must be careful with our wording. Better profitability, because the profit margin was better. But if we look at the profits themselves, the profits are higher for the OSc average because their sales are also higher, right? So we can't say better profits. Okay, so there's part A for 16 marks. We're done with that. Now let's quickly do part B and wrap up. So part B for 4 marks, what does it say? It says, explain how the standards and rewards block support the dimensions block in Fitzgerald and Moon's building block model. So it's a standard concept-based, theory-based question, not we don't need to refer to the requirement for this, right? And that's why we need to know these models very well so that we can give good explanations. So we'll start by mentioning what standards and rewards are, and then we'll mention how they support Fitzgerald and Moon's building block model. That's always a good practice, to briefly describe the thing you're talking about and then address the requirement. So standards are the targets or goals we set for the staff to achieve. It's for 4 marks, so we can go in a bit more detail by mentioning they need to be fair in allowing us to assess the performance across all staff members. They must be achievable so as not to demotivate staff from attempting to achieve them, right? And they must involve input from the lower level staff when being set to ensure that they are realistic and that the staff takes ownership in trying to achieve them, right? If they're involved in setting the standards, then they would want to achieve them because they were involved in setting them, right? Likewise, rewards are the motivators used to encourage staff to achieve the standards, right? They need to be clear in what needs to be done to achieve them, right? They need to be based on factors under the staff's control, right? Otherwise they'll be demotivated that they're being judged by something outside their control. And they may need to be motivational in order to successfully uh, successfully encourage staff to achieve the goals. Okay, and now we'll just link them to dimensions. The standards set the realistic targets which must be achieved in each dimension for the company to thrive, while the rewards are there to ensure that staff hit the targets in each dimension. Collectively, these building blocks ensure a good performance in each significant area of a company's operations. Alright, just for 4 marks, so we'll stop here and we're done with this part. Okay, so there you have it. Part B for 4 marks. We briefly described standards and rewards. It was for 4 marks, so we mentioned the fair, achievable, clear, controllable, motivational stuff, right? That's usually typically that you need to mention them, and then we just link them to the dimensions. Okay, and we structured our answer above with headings and subheadings so that it's easier to follow and very presentable. Okay, so I hope you guys benefited from this video and got a good idea about how to attempt a building block model question in section C of the exam. And with that, I'll sign off and I'll see you guys next time.